In Perth, Western Australia, Steve Graham is bracing himself for another marathon trek.
So I've got 4,700 Ks and I've got 7 days.
Steve knows the outback like no other, but on this trip, he's heading into the unknown.
You always get a bit nervous when you're doing something new. I don't care how old you are.
His destination is in Australia's far north, at the end of a run most truckers wouldn't dare face. Arnhem Land is Australia's final frontier. It's home to some of the most remote communities and the most unforgiving dirt roads in the country.
It'll have its challenges. It'll have challenges and it'll be new to me because it's new country.
From Perth, Steve will make a 4,800 kilometre journey to the indigenous communities of Elcho Island and Nimcay. To reach these isolated settlements, Steve faces one of the biggest tests of his career.
It's a new road, which is a mongrel of a road. It's a barge at the other end.
He'll have to load his 50-ton road train onto a barge.
The problem with this bloody barging is tides. It's out of your control, you know, and no one wants to pay to hang around for 13 days for the next tide.
Steve's got one shot at catching the barge, and if he doesn't deliver, he doesn't get paid. On board his truck, $350,000 worth of solar equipment. It'll give the two isolated communities power 24/7 for the first time. First, Steve has to load the 40-foot containers onto his hired trailer using its inbuilt crane. Sounds simple.
Shut out, doesn't like it.
But only if the crane works.
No.
The fragile freight's going nowhere.
Have you blokes got a battery anywhere here? I'm trying to restart it. We've got a flat battery here, so we'll just put some jumper leads on it. And it's still showing a fault. I don't think it's the battery, mate.
If Steve can't fix the problem fast, he risks missing the tide and barge. He'll have to call the hire company for help.
God.
Suddenly, the whole job's on the line, and Steve hasn't even left the yard.
I can't believe it. This is and I'm really under the pump. I've got to catch a tide, and the friggin' phones are down in Maddington. I can't get hold of them. This is starting to get painful.
A temperamental crane trailer is taxing Steve Graham's time and patience.
We found a blown fuse in here, so if it's a bloody blown fuse, I'll be annoyed.
He should have been on the road hours ago, and a life-changing mission for two remote communities is at stake.
Something as tiny as a little 20-cent, 20-amp fuse could maybe be holding up 4,500 kilometres, catch a barge, all of that, the millions of dollars associated with this whole bloody job. Let's try a fuse, mate.
The whole trip rests on a simple replacement fuse.
That's a relief.
There you go.
At last, the precious solar equipment can be loaded.
One 20-cent fuse. Nearly cost us millions.
Steve's marathon run can finally get underway.
We'll just ride with that. It's all going to go smoothly from now.
Ahead are 2,000 kilometres of bitumen through the vast Western Australian desert. But the further north Steve goes, the hotter it gets. 100 k's out of Broome, the temperature's pushing 40 degrees, and Steve's feeling the heat.
I had a mongrel day yesterday. The air conditioner had gone in this truck, and I'm going to go and get it fixed. I'm not going to do the next 3 days without an aircon.
Steve's hoping the job should be a quick fix. But there's bad news from the mechanic.
After replacing the compressor, there was still a leak in this unit. So now the boys are welding it up. It's always nerve-wracking, and time is just running away from me.
Steve's got one chance to make a barge that's still 2,500 kilometres away. This is time he can't spare.
I would rather be on the road right now, clicking away those Ks.
In the tropical north, a busted aircon is costing Steve Graham dearly. Time and the tide won't wait for him. He needs to get moving. Time to get the mechanic's verdict.
At the moment, its holding pressure hasn't dropped at all.
Right, this truck's good to go. It's time to make a mile. I'm glad I got that repair done. That's good, but it also cost time. It cost me a good half a day. It's nearly 1 o'clock now.
While he's back on the road, Steve knows any more delays could break him.
I can't ring up and say I'm going to be half a day late because there's a tide.
And soon he'll hit the dirt, where his speed will drop to keep his fragile load safe. This remote wilderness is Arnhem Land. Out here, the roads are as tough as they come. Steve's beaten most of Australia's roughest runs, but he's never dared take on the road ahead.
Today's the day I want to break the back of that run out the Arnhem Highway. I want to get most of this job done.
Now he's about to head into the unknown with hired gear he doesn't trust.
That engine under there does worry me. To me, that's a very exposed little engine. I hope there's not very many rocks on this road. If they start flicking up, I'll be keeping an eye on that. That's critical. I can't get these containers off without that.
If he damages the trailer's engine, Steve could be stuck in the middle of nowhere with freight he can't unload.
My worries now is how good or bad that road is. There's the dirt. We've hit the dirt.
As he leaves the bitumen behind, Steve's on high alert.
This next 400 kilometres, I'll be looking at new country.
But soon, he's met by a familiar foe.
Welcome to my old mates, the corrugations.
The corrugations are giving the truck a beating.
They're doing damage to your trailers, your running gear. They're doing damage to your freight. If this keeps up, I'll have to poke along even more slowly, like walking pace.
Steve knows the barge won't wait. If he goes too slow, he could miss it. Too fast, and he could damage his precious freight. And ahead is another hazard.
We're at the Goyder River. Just about to get the Goyder River crossing done.
To get through the river, Steve will risk more than just his truck. But first, he needs to check the load. Under the hire trailer, Steve's worst fears are confirmed.
Now, I've got a serious problem here.
The crane's engine has taken a huge hit.
The spare tyre carrier's fallen to bits. It's dropped back. The tyre's obviously bounced up. It smashed the return line of the hydraulics and it's busted off the air intake under here.
With the crane's hydraulics smashed, Steve has no way to unload his vital freight. The damage bill could cost thousands. But worse still, the barge is over 400 kilometres away. And Steve's alone, deep in the vast, untamed wilderness of Arnhem Land.
I'm pissed off about this. I mean, I allowed time for drama, but what really worries me with this is I'm here to deliver these containers. This could be a mechanical failure that I really didn't want.
With daylight fading, a temporary fix is his only hope.
I'm just sealing this stuff up so it won't get any dirt in it. I didn't think its own tyre was going to come back and hit it. It's the worst possible, absolutely worst nightmare that could ever happen because it's going on a barge to an island, one of the most remote places in Australia.
By the time Steve's made repairs, it's night. Now he'll face the river, driving near blind.
I don't know if there's saltwater crocs in this river or not. There probably is. I'll take it for granted that there are.
If he loses traction, he could grind to a halt, with no choice but to enter dangerous waters.
Fingers crossed.
Steve Graham's braving a croc-infested river in the pitch black.
You don't want to be stuck there spinning the wheel.
Distraction now, and he'll be stranded in the midst of dangerous waters.
I'm not enjoying this at all.
He's through, and one step closer to getting help for his damaged trailer.
I had camp tonight and I'll get up very early and I'll start idling in. Well, I've had a lousy night's sleep. Not much at all worrying about this. Everything rests on this thing working. This is a nightmare, this is a nightmare, and I've got to get on with it now.
If he can't get the crane engine fixed in time, Steve will miss the barge, leaving a community without solar power, and the roads making it painfully slow going.
I'll probably only go 5 kilometres now, maybe less. I'll just see how the road feels.
Every few kilometres, he must stop to check his temporary fix is holding. With the high tide just hours away, it's the last thing Steve needs. But ahead, there's a glimmer of hope.
Well, I'm hit some bitumen, so I reckon I'm about 20 or 30k out of town. Find somewhere to set myself up and start fixing this bloody engine.
Now, the whole job hangs on whether Steve can find a mechanic. Out here, it won't be easy. But at last, Steve's caught a break.
I've got onto a fella, a mechanic by the name of Brad. He's going to come and have a look at this.
If he's to make the barge, the repair needs to be done here and now.
Now, what's happened is, this tyre rack's gone here.
The engine mounts are gone, and the hydraulic lines have been ripped out. But the biggest casualty is the air filter.
That's yep.
It's a complex repair job, but with no time, Brad must improvise, giving it all in punishing heat.
It's lost maybe 80 litres of hydraulic fluid, so we'll pump the hydraulic fluid in it.
This is the last drum of Brad's oil. This is the last drum of oil in town. Go and hit the starter and see what happens.
The engine's running, but it's far from fixed.
It's like the alternator sees, Steve.
Oh yeah, it might have got full of dust and shit, mate.
It's jammed.
Steve's hopes of making the barge are fading fast. Steve's almost out of time to reach the barge, but his damaged trailer still isn't fixed.
The actual cooling fan now is jammed in the radiator housing.
To make the fan blades spin, they'll have to be trimmed by taking to the engine with an electric saw. It's a painful sight, but it's Steve's last throw of the dice.
Not pretty, but it'll have to do.
You good to go?
Yep.
Going.
The engine's running, but will the crane work?
Righto, mate, I can't see anything, so just tell me what's happening.
Yep, we're good. Good result. We seem to be back together and, yeah, away we go.
That's a relief. That's an absolute relief.
Thanks to Brad's bush skills, Steve's back in business.
Pleasure, mate.
Very good.
Pleasure doing
Yeah.
the job.
Now he needs to make that all-important barge. With high tide less than an hour away, it's a final dash to the dock. After 4,500 grueling kilometres, Steve's made it, and just in time. But his troubles are far from over.
I'm going to have to try and put the thing on this dirt ramp.
To board the barge, Steve will have to drive his 50-ton road train off an unstable mound of dirt. And that's if the barge can make it to shore.
Well, the barge hit the deck about 3 metres short. So what they're going to do is they're going to go out, they're going to pump more ballast out of the front so they can lift the front up.
The water's too shallow for the barge to get in close.
And then they're going to ram her in, they're going to try and jam her into the mud. They can make a bridge and I can get on with things.
All eyes are on the skipper.
No, too short, and they can't get in close enough. And we've only got about half an hour before absolute high tide. So they've got half an hour to get it in, they're pumping like mad. You can see all that water pouring out the side of the boat. All I've got to do is just wait patiently. At the minute, it's not my shot yet. I wouldn't like to be a skipper on that. He's got to get the thing in.
If the barge can't reach Steve in the next few minutes, his epic journey will come to an end. Right here, right now.